All right, my G's, this is going to be the best Neurofunk filtering bass tutorial that you've ever watched on YouTube, okay? We're going to be using the Filter Freak because it's still one of the best sounding filters that there is. There's a lot of new filters I've tried out, but I always go back to the Filter Freak. Even though it's old school, it just still has a better sound, in my opinion, you know? There's some synths that have great filters within them, but what I'm giving you guys today is a post-processing filtering guide for Neurofunk bass lines. And so we're going to be using today a patch from my latest Phase Plant preset pack called Prophecy, which is the Filth Bucket Reese, which sounds like this. I've paired it up with a random drum loop, one that I really like from a Ghost Syndicate sample pack. Those are linked down below as well as affiliate links in case you guys ever need any cool D&B drum samples. I say cool, they're really high quality. They're more than just cool. And yeah, the Filter Freak as well. As this video goes up, the Sound Toy stuff is all still on sale. And if you don't have it and you want to get it, you can also support the channel by grabbing it through an affiliate link down below. But I'm going to do a deep dive on the Filter Freak today, show you guys how I've used it, the tips and tricks that I've learned, you know, having used it for such a long time. So here's the sort of bass line with the drums without any filtering, and then I'm going to give you like 3 filter kind of methods or concepts. All right. So why the filter would be good on the sound like this? It's because it's very full stack. You know, it's very full in the frequency spectrum. Okay, if I get my trusty span open here, you can see. All right, you know, it's got a fair notch in there. Or I'll tell a lie. Okay, it's already got a Neurofunk Reese shape to it, which has already kind of a built-in notch. I did that in the sound design process, but we can still use this sound absolutely and give it more life and excitement through filtering, okay, and like change the kind of vibe of it, you know. So I've got 3 filter concepts to go over. One of them is going to be what I call a mid-range shifting call and response. Then I'm going to show you another filter technique, which is going to be called the filter stab motion. And then we've got another filtering technique, which is the dual notch. Okay. And there's important nuances when you're using filtering that you need to always pay attention to, right? Because when you're doing it on bass lines, when you're filtering, you're basically removing frequencies, right? So you're going to always be losing power losing volume in some degree, you know? So why would you bother? Well, the point is to get more interesting shapes and movements within the sound, but that comes at a cost because you're sculpting things away usually when you're filtering. So you're shaping it, you're taking some frequencies out to gain extra tonality, sometimes extra movements within the sound, but you're losing a bit of volume. And how do you account for that? Well, you just sort of turn up the sound again, you know, using input and output gains within the filter, using the filter drives that are built in to sort of boost the volume again. So you're filtering things out, you're sort of taking stuff away, and you've got to boost it all back up together once it's done. All right. And the other thing to also note when you're filtering like basses is you don't really want to be taking out the actual fundamental low part of the bass, you know, as much as you can avoid it. Or if you're filtering down, you know, all of the bass frequencies out, you're doing it in more of a, you know, as a momentary movement, but not as a full, you know, not fully taking out all the low end for too long. Okay, so where the filtering becomes most useful is in the mid-range, because in the mid-range, that's where we create always the expression within a sound, you know? So think about vocals, think about guitars, Neurofunk leads, Neurofunk mid-bass is all the same game. It's mid-range expression gives life to the sound, you know? Having just movement in the high end, in the treble, ain't going to give you that like weight and movement that you want from the whole sound, you know. And having all your filter movement too low, you're going to be taking out too much of the bass. So we've got this area to play with always when we're filtering, which is the best area, which is that sort of 200 hertz to 600 hertz, somewhere around there. If we can get our main movements to be within that zone, then we're going to have like weight, and we're gonna have a good time. Right, so this is the first technique. This is the sort of like a call and response mid-range shifter. You can see what's going on in the filter here, and let's play it. Remember the Reese without filtering, and with this one on. So if you play that in the groove here. So it's really cool because you have like a call and response where you basically you've got a big notch in the sound, and you're changing where that notch is so that certain parts the mid-range will be emphasized over here, and in other parts the mid-range will be emphasized over here. Okay? And so we're using the Filter Freak 2 because it allows us to have two filters at the same time. So rather than having one filter and one notch, we can have control over a low pass and a high pass to manually create ourselves a notch, and then we can actually move the low pass and the high pass independently, so it becomes more of a dynamic notch filter than just one single filter movement. You know, that's why the Filter Freak 2, becomes really, that's why it was so successful when it came out, is because it had that. You could get a little bit more complex with the filter movements, right? So this one here is in parallel. So you can see here, parallel obviously means that they're playing at both filters are active at the same time. So we've got a low pass on and a high pass on. Later we'll do one in serial as well. But for this one, right, we've got a filter 1 here, low pass. Filter 2 is high pass. The frequency amounts are set here. So we've got about 76 for the low pass, 312 for the high pass. And if I turn the mod off here, you'll see, what the sort of filter looks like without any movement, right? So it's kind of like that. But obviously the mod is going to be how much we're going to shift that, that gap, that notch up to the right to create that sort of call and response idea. And again, we're not going up so high, because then we get this high screechy filter sound, and we don't access that growly mid-range expression that I was talking about. So somewhere there, we're still within that range of whether enjoyable movements are going to happen. Okay, so you'll notice as well that there are we've put the rhythm on 1 bar. And we're gonna dive under the hood now in the Filter Freak. We're gonna open up. We're gonna hit the tweak button here. The rhythm, that's just saying it's already set to the rhythm here, so it's nice and easy. But the tweak button, we can go under the hood. So even the shape of the rhythm, we can draw it in here. So you get these lovely modes that you can always try the sort of basic shapes out from. You can smooth it out, or more or less, and we can just listen to the movement and see how it glides up, and see like if we want it to be sharper or more sort of smooth, as I said. We can draw in our own shapes here if we want, And that's cool too. But we'll stick. It's a bit awkward with this one. You've got to press Alt and click the mouse, and then it'll delete the points. We'll stick with this reverse shape. Now what you can also do is you can try out the different analog modes. So I really like this op amp one down here. It seems to give the most sort of volume and power. It's quite significantly louder than the rest. So, when we're filtering, we need that loudness back again. So it's important to go for the best, your best analog style that you can as well, So that one's going to be a good one to use often. So here you've got these other things, which is really important. So the mod amount here will move the filters sort of at the same rate, at the same amount together. But within this extra setting here, you can actually change it so that the frequency one, you can even make it go the other way, or you can just make it go up to the right but less, And the same with the frequency 2, we can like go more subtle with it, as you see how the filters are moving. Or you can make it go higher here as well, so it'll go up even further. So again, that could create a more obvious kind of call and response idea, or a more subtle one. So that's too far for me, so I'll back that second one off a bit here. And that's more Neurofunk to me. It's darker, it doesn't go too crazy, it just has that key mid-range shifting, and you keep all of the low end in. As you see on the low pass filter here, all the lows are still in, and it's only this sort of notch area, which is probably starting maybe somewhere around 150 something or 100. That's the area that's moving. We're not taking out sort of any frequencies sort of below 100 hertz ever. So the whole power of the bass is always in there. So that's like the first idea, right? Sounds great, doesn't it? We compare it back to when it was flat. Much more powerful and interesting because it's had this extra shaping and extra movement done to it. And we've tweaked the volumes as well. So you can see the input has gone up 1.8 and the output's gone up 0.4. Because if these were just flat at 0, it's almost like we lost a little bit of overall volume compared to before the filter was on. So by turning those guys up though, because we've taken out a fair chunk of mid-range, we can reintroduce the whole power back into the sound again just by turning the volume up, right? And as long as you don't go overboard, it should work pretty fine. So the next filter idea is a filter stab motion. So again, we're doing a sound in parallel. We can have our filters in parallel. Again, the first one is a low pass, as you can see here. It's like kind of a little bit how it was before. But rather than a high pass here, which we used to create the notch earlier, we'll now do a band pass, which will take out some of the high end. So you won't actually hear any high end at this point. But with the movement on, we're going to give you injections of that high end as the band pass moves up to the right. Okay. And so we can choose whatever kind of rhythm we want. Again, just want the rhythm section here. It's quite easy to use. You can set the MIDI to sync to your grid. And I like a 1/4 dotted rhythm is always great for Neurofunk. So something like a 1/4 dotted. It's great here. You can adjust the groove to make it slightly off the grid as well. That's really, really useful to get your basses to swing a bit more, have a bit more shuffle, so they kind of, they're a bit lazy or a bit fast compared to the drum beat. That's really helpful for extra, groove points. So it's kind of a bit of a shuffling groove here. And yeah, for this one then, again, we can come down to the tweak, and then we can control the shape again here. Maybe we want it to be, just try having it really tight, turn the smoothing down a bit. If you want that fast, kind of little stab growl. And that main high end kind of growl stab kind of sound we're adding in is coming from the band pass filter as it goes up to the high frequencies. So if we want to reduce that, we can do that here on the frequency mod 2 here. So it doesn't go up so high. So then it's a bit more of a subtle kind of stab that's not so high-end focused. So that's cool as well. It makes it kind of a little bit darker. And what you can do again, because when we've taken out quite a lot of high-end from the sound, again, we're boosting the input a fair bit. What is this, 3 dB or so, just under 4 dB, just to bring the whole volume up again of the whole sound. But we can also mix the filter off, take the wet back towards the dry to how it was to begin with, and it'll reintroduce like a bit of that high end that we took out. We can have a little subtle bit of high end still in there. So that's pretty good. We'll turn that second filter movement up a little bit more. The frequency mod kind of controls like how far it will go up towards the right, and this level mod will also give it like more of a volume boost as it goes up. So you can kind of like get it to be a lot more aggressive if you need it to be. So you can make the sound as like subtle or as different to the original as you want, you know? So even sometimes just having like that kind of like building that filter movement idea and then mixing it back in with the original, maybe even to 50-50. And so that now you've got like a subtle stab movement within your bass line. If you A/B that to the original now. Back on. That's really, really sweet, isn't it? It has like a really subtle kind of extra rhythmical layer to the whole bass now. And again, we're using the Filter Freak again for this because of the sound quality, mostly, yeah? It just does a really great job at, you know, through the analog emulation, you know, giving that filter a chance to be heard and still give a powerful sound. Whereas a lot of other filter plugins who try to do this sort of stuff, you'll lose so much power on your bass and you'll lose so much power on your sound that it almost becomes like pointless in a way, you know? That's just from my experience of trying other filters out. I just think this one is one of the rare ones where it keeps a lot of the power in, you know, because you always lose a little bit of power, but you keep most of it in with this one. So so that's the sort of, the stabbing motion. And there's one more I've got for you here. This is a little bit different now. This is a dual notch movement, right? So this is more of a subtle one, but adds like a lot of energy and life to like a Reese like this. And so as you can see, what we're doing here is we're having two notch filters, but they're going the other way. So they're going, you know, they're going to overlap. They're going to create this sort of helix effects where, yeah, they create this overlapping movement, and that generates like a specific kind of notch filter sound, you know. So two notches, you know, going in between each other. And the way we achieve that is we first have to go on to serial mode here. So otherwise, if they're both on parallel, noise overload. Okay, so serial, and then we can select the band reject filter here, the BRF. That's the notch filter down here. We can use the poles to see like how big of a notch we want. I think that for this one, I have one of them on 4 and one of them on 2. It's nice to have a bit of variation between them. And then, yeah, the resonance, obviously you can choose kind of the sort of steepness of the notch. And yeah, the frequency amounts, they're quite close, but they are different. So one starts at 248 and one starts at 432. And we're just moving the whole thing within a range of like 20% on this modulation knob here. So that's the sort of overall range. But then as we go to the tweak section again here, this is where we have to use this part. So the frequency 1 goes to the left 10, and the frequency 2 goes to the right 10. So if this mod was up higher, they'd be going all the way left to right, you know, but the mod amount is like the global modulation, so that's going to control it to keep it like within that certain range. So one can go full left and the other full right within this range that we set here. And we can do a little bit of tweaking, like on the level and the resonance of the two separate ones, because again, that's the cool thing about the Filter Freak 2 is you can, each filter can have slightly different settings. So one could be a bit higher, one could be a bit lower, and like through having different sort of heights on the filters, you're going to emphasize certain frequency areas in the mid-range differently, and you can listen while you're doing that and try to get an even better tone always. Go back to the OP amp analog style as well here. Just sort of tweaking things around a bit. This time I've gone for like a sine wave shape, a really like kind of smooth one. So if you do A-B that again, see how much like more meaty you've made the whole sound, because you've put all this notch movement in, you've started to re-emphasize the low end and the high end as well. So you've created interesting mid-range movement, plus you're exaggerating the frequencies around where the movement's happening. So you get this like more this impression of like louder bass almost. So that's great. And again, the mix is on 100 here, but we can also mix this whole effect back again. And so for really like professional kind of sounding bass lines in Neurofunk, this is what I do on loads of my tracks. I have done on loads of like past releases as well. Is I've set up this great filter movement and then I've dialed it back in to be like kind of smooth within the bass line, and then found like a sweet spot within that, Even like 65 there. Now you've got a really nice tonality to the whole bass line. Make the whole thing much more powerful, And by doing your filtering, like notch filtering and all this great stuff, in your post-processing with the Filter Freak, for example, you're going to generate new sort of types of tonalities and ideas, just through the coloring of the Filter Freak itself, that you wouldn't be able to do if you just did all of your filtering inside the synth. So that's why I tend to often do, it's kind of a filter resampling method, I tend to often do like set my sounds up in phase plant or whatever with some great, movements, and as you can see, there's already like notch filters. There's a bunch of filters going on already. There's already like four filters going on in the patch, But then, as you see, like when I take it out of the synth, then I run it through some post-processing with a new filter concept and new filter ideas, new filter plugin. I could get to take the sound even further in a direction that I want it to go. It actually becomes better. So the Filter Freak always works for me for like neuro basses, making them better. So that's why I wanted to share that with you guys today, even if it's a classic old school plugin. That's kind of that last one's my favorite. I think that works the best for this particular sound, because it still got that full sustained kind of movement of the Reese. It's just added extra notch mid-range movement in to make the whole thing more powerful. So that'd be my top pick for that kind of sound, I think. But yeah, these other filter methods work just as well. And what you can also then do, if for example here, I've made all these three ideas, three filter ideas. That's three separate baseline ideas that I can sort of jump between always. So I can set up, bounce these whole three different ideas out, and then I can use them as fills. Let's say, which one was my favorite? It was I think that was my favorite one. And then I can maybe switch. Maybe I could do a whole thing like that, and then maybe for the last one I can do a whole bar like that, just as an example. So then I've made a sick call and response pattern out of my Reese, where the filter movements and everything sort of changes, every bar, and then it keeps the whole thing like super interesting, and you're going to struggle to get all of that within a synth, without doing the resampling like this. So it's so useful for resampling. So that's my deep dive tutorial today on the Filter Freak, how I use it, why I use it, what I pay attention to while I'm doing it. Again, just remember, don't filter out too much of the bass frequencies. Get the joy from your mid-range movement always in that sort of 200 to 600 area. That's where all the magic's going to happen. Try the different sort of movement ideas, blend them back in on the mix knob with your original, and find a sweet spot if you want it to be more subtle. And make sure you're turning up the using the analog settings and boosting the filter again to regain that volume that you will lose a little bit as you do the filtering, So there you go. That's my deep dive on filtering. Hope it helps you guys out. Thanks a lot for watching. Like and subscribe. Comment down below. And if you don't have the Filter Freak yet and you want to get it while it's on sale, highly recommend that. Grab it through my link down below. It supports the channel and helps me to keep making tutorials for you guys directly. So appreciate that. And massive thank you to everyone who's already, purchased some other stuff this Black Friday through my affiliate links. Much respect, yeah. And finally, as well, there's some other links down below to my one-on-one lessons, my mastering services via email, a great Patreon community over on Discord, and also my preset packs are listed for Phase Plant, Current, Vital, Serum. They're all on 50% sale right now for Black Friday as well, up until the end of the month. So grab some new packs off there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.